Welcome to the Beloved Conversations podcast. I'm Cindy Grasso, your host, and in this space, we'll be sharing real-life stories. Stories of hope, transformation, and healing. Stories from real people who've encountered God's love and how it has changed their lives. Today, I have a wonderful guest. She is a business owner. She's a mom. She is a colleague of mine who helps me minister to women. Her name is Nancy Ellis, and I want to welcome you to today's podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Nancy is the founder and owner of BibleBabiesAndBusiness.com, which you can say B times 3.
That's right. B times 3 for sure.
Times 3.
It's a tongue twister.
And it started as a small group first?
It did. Yes. It was my necessity to have a mom's night out.
Oh.
And so it was just a bunch of moms that wanted to have a little time to themselves. And then it ended up being a Saturday morning coffee club.
Nice.
And then that coffee club turned into an online ministry and an online class for new moms.
That is fantastic. It's been fun to be a part of your story and to see your story. But I would like the listeners to kind of I would like to know how you got to be a mom and that journey. And then this season is Portraits of Forgiveness. And that's what we're doing with the Beloved Bible Study. And I want to hear your forgiveness story and what God has done in your life through that. So first, let's prep by explaining to them how you got to being a mom and what that journey looked like for you.
Yeah, it's been a beautiful story, and it had so many ups and downs. My husband and I have been together for almost 19 years now,
Wow.
So high school sweethearts. But when we started trying to have children, we couldn't. And so my story starts out in a story of infertility, and it took us 4 years of trying to have a child. And I always envisioned myself as a mom. I was that weird little girl that was playing house and mommy even at, 2-3 years old. And so I wrapped my identity around the title of mother for as long as I could remember. And not getting that title when I thought I was ready.
Right.
It messed with me. And so it put me into a funk. It put me into a depression. And it also made me rebel against God and my husband and the world.
Were you angry at God?
Yeah. So I thought, I subscribed to this YOLO lifestyle. You only live once. So let's do the parties. Let's do the friends. Let's be busy. Let's build our careers. Let's distract ourselves from
The pain.
the emptiness, the loneliness. But God is so faithful, and he dreams much bigger than we can dream. And so not only did he bless me with one child, but 10 months later, he blessed me with another.
Of course he did.
He did. So he said, you're going to get what you prayed for and more.
And that's back to back.
And it was back to back, 10 months.
That's no break.
Nope.
In between.
I went to my 6-week checkup with my daughter, and I was pregnant again with my son.
What did you do?
The doctor was like, I told you not to do this.
And at this point, you're like, I know I have no control because I tried to get pregnant. That was, I tried to get pregnant for 4 or 5 years. I probably 4.5, and then gave up completely. We moved. We were living in my husband's grandmother's garage that she had turned into a really sad little apartment. And I was like, fine, I'm done. I don't know what my future holds. And I got pregnant.
Yes.
And then my son was 13 months old and I got pregnant again. I was like, okay, I have no control over
anything.
This. Yeah, definitely.
It's the same. And stress is a big deterror, and control is a big deterror, because mine was the same thing. Once we really started enjoying each other's company without the pressure of starting a family. Exactly. Yeah, reproducing. We were at Fontainebleau on Miami, and I know exactly the night I conceived my first. There was just something really magical about it. And so that was lovely. But then Gio was 7 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
And so that's where they overlap in calendar year.
So how far apart are they?
They're 10.5 months apart.
Okay.
Both born in 2014. One at the beginning, one at the end. And so you would think
You went from one extreme kind of to the
Exactly.
next.
You would think I'd be overjoyed. You would think I'd be
Your dream came true.
exactly everything I prayed for and then some. God multiplied, and I wasn't. I was lost. And in a house full of people, I was lonely.
Now, you had said that you did the YOLO life. That was you kept trying to figure out how to fill that emptiness, and then did that stop, or did you just exchange that for something else?
So YOLO stopped for me, but it didn't stop for my husband.
Okay.
So that was a point of contention really early on where he still had guys' night, he still went to work, and I didn't. I was a shell of a person. I was living for him. I was living for these 2 new babies, and I didn't know how to live for myself. I didn't know who I was. All of these titles like wife and mother that I thought I wanted, I was discontent with, and I was ungrateful. And then I started feeling guilty for that.
Right.
You've been praying for this for
Right.
29 years.
It's not fulfilling.
No.
It doesn't feel like you thought it did.
No.
And then you have guilt for it.
Exactly.
And you don't want to talk about it because now you feel like you are the worst person because you feel awful,
Yes.
but you got what you wanted.
Yes. And so I changed the YOLO for bad mom culture. And
Explain that to me.
yeah, so bad mom culture is
Is that okay? So is that like bad mom, like you're a bad mom, or like a bad mom?
no, like you're a bad mom.
You're a bad mom. It's
Yeah.
not like super mom with a old 80s.
No, like you shouldn't. So there's a movie, Bad Mom,
Okay.
and you like your kids are a burden, and you need
Okay.
coffee in the morning as your upper and wine at night as your downer, and your favorite hobby is just talking about how these kids are sucking the life out of you physically,
Okay.
mentally, spiritually, and you find comfort somehow with other moms that just speak ill of the kids and speak ill of their husbands and treat their husbands like they're another child and not like
So
a
it's,
partner.
it's kind of a community in a place where you felt kind of isolated.
Right.
So it's not a healthy community,
Right,
but it was there for you.
right. And so I stayed. Postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety is supposed to be a chemical imbalance in your brain for a number of weeks while your hormones stabilize. And unfortunately, it lasted for a year. Gio was a year old. My second was a year old by the time I realized that I was depressed and I was in this toxic culture and toxic mindset that it wasn't healthy and it's not biblical. It's not healthy. And I remember I showered for the first time in what felt like weeks by myself. And I heard God say, it's okay. I forgive you. You can forgive yourself. It's okay to feel ungrateful. It's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel confused about what the future holds now that you've gotten everything that you thought you wanted. And he said, I forgive you. So will you just forgive yourself so you can enjoy this life? And I thought, I really want to, but I don't know what that means. I don't know how to do that.
How do you do that? So were you, so you've got the bad mom culture, but were you putting yourself or comparing yourself to the perfect mom syndrome? Like part of perfectionism in it of itself as women, it's probably not just women, but perfectionism is a way that you think you can, if you're good enough, if you look good, if you've got it all together, if you can do it all, then you're going to be happy and fulfilled. Or then nobody can at least judge you because you're perfect. It's kind of like a bit of a wall, but it's a prison. It's really not a wall at all. And I know that that perfect mom syndrome is probably the other side of the bad moms, like just rebelled. They just rebelled and said, well, we're not going to be perfect. So let's just enjoy the fact that, but there was still empty.
Yes. And
there was still no
it's
joy
so
in
funny
it.
because, when you think you want to be a mom, you have this idea of kids who are well-mannered and well-manicured, and you have a husband that's well-mannered and well-manicured.
The Instagram
Yes.
or Pinterest
Right,
pictures.
Right. And you are put together. And then bad mom culture is the opposite, where it's like, we're just lucky to get out of the house. So as
Right.
long as I have a wine glass in my hand,
Yeah.
I can look like a hot mess.
Yeah.
And, I can send my kids to school with whatever. And that's not it either.
Right.
That is not this
It went
scarcity
from one
mindset.
it's to extreme. And I think too, part of it was there was some pressure in the generation before us of don't talk about anything.
Exactly.
Like pretend it's all good if it's not. And it sounds like our generation just kind of kicked that to the curb and then went the other opposite way on it and said, well, we're going to tell you all of it and we're going to kind of own it as an identity. But it isn't, it's a miserable identity.
It is. And when that shower, I will remember for the rest of my life, I'm dripping wet and I came out of the shower and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and it was like an enlightenment. My eyes were opened for the first time. And he said, your children are a gift and your husband is a partner. And it's okay that you weren't treating them that way. I forgive you. So go apologize to them. And I literally did this. I looked at Kenny, my husband, and I said, I'm sorry for treating you like one of the kids. And I'm sorry that I was bitter. And I'm sorry that I thought that your life hadn't changed. And I see that our lives are changing together and we just are new at this. We're navigating it together. And I even apologized to Gabby and Gio. They were babies. They don't remember this, but I looked at them and I'm like, you are not a burden. You are not a burden.
Wow.
And I'm sorry that I treated you like that. And now I look back on some pictures of their first birthday and when they were really little, and I don't even remember. It was like I was in a fog. And so I had to apologize to Kenny. I had to apologize to the kids. And I had to forgive myself.
What did that look like, forgiving yourself?
Well, thank the Lord. He put me in touch with you because you had me do some soul-searching work on identity. And at that very same moment, I knew that it wasn't mom's night out. It wasn't meeting for coffee to talk about the trials and tribulations of motherhood, but it was truly trying to understand, why am I here? Why was I gifted with a husband? Why was I gifted with 2 kids? Why am I still working? And so my identity was that I'm enough for him. There's no amount of
Him
laundry.
being
God, yes.
You are enough for your husband as well. But I just want to clarify.
There's no amount of laundry. There's no amount of diapers. There's no amount of sex with my husband that will make him more proud of me in my titles here on earth. You know what I mean?
Did you, what I love about that whole encounter, so many things. One of them is that God forgave you first. That you received the forgiveness, and that forgiveness set you free.
Yes.
To kind of let all of the image and the expectations and the guilt, to let that fall away, and then to ask for forgiveness and receive it. I love that you asked forgiveness from your babies. The other thing too is that that was a part of your journey of forgiving yourself because you had put judgments and you had put labels on your husband and on your life and on. Were you working full time during that whole time?
Yeah, and I had taken maternity leave twice. So with my son, because it's the same calendar year. So with my son, I had to go back right away.
So you were also a full-time mom, full-time work.
Right.
Out of the home.
I managed 9 people at the time. And so God was doing a whole lot of work on, no wonder you feel empty. No wonder you feel like you're living for other people. You are. When was the last time you got alone and spent time with me?
Yeah.
When was the last time you did anything for yourself and even asked to do anything for yourself? Because I've been really blessed to have a community. My mom is here, my sister, my brother. I have a lot of friends. And yet I did not receive help from my husband, from them, and at work. And so I took a season and I heard God say, it's time to do something else. And so I stepped down from a leadership position, which goes against my pride. And
that was after your shower moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. After my
huge
shower
for
moment. He just rocked my world in every way. And so then Bibles, Babies, and Business went from Mom's Night Out to Coffee Club to really an online ministry where, yes, I still work full time. Yes, I'm a wife. Yes, I'm a mom of two. But I also have this ability to share this journey of motherhood and postpartum depression with so many other people, whether they're working moms or not. And so I have this online community of women who have felt the same guilt and pressure.
Yeah.
And are trying to get on the other side of it from this scarcity mindset of be this super mom. I almost envision like a superhero and she has multiple arms, like Octomom, I don't even know. And she's got work and
I always felt like Elastigirl would have been the perfect, that was a great mom.
That's right.
Superhero with Dash.
And I told them, you're not supposed to do any of that. Like, that is not the right order.
You don't have to be super mom.
No, Jesus is the only perfect person, and he's the only one that can multiply our efforts. And so release yourself, be free of all of that pressure and live in the moment. Love your husband, cherish your children, do good work in whatever seat God plants you in, whether it's formal leadership, informal leadership.
Friend, daughter,
exactly.
Mom. So tell me how that forgiveness of self, first receiving it at the moment where God says you're enough. You can't earn anymore. When you were telling me the story, your whole face lit up, and you went from a kind of a drudgery life, and it freed you up. How did that, what was the joy? It's like you had more room for joy.
Yes, I did.
What does that look like?
I did. And it is so freeing because if I don't do laundry for 2 weeks and we have no underwear, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't mean that you're unlovable.
Exactly.
Or that you failed, or that you're the worst mom ever. It means that you are a daughter of God who's really busy and doing the best she can.
And it gave me this new appreciation for seeing God's grace and God's mercy. Like, I remember taking Gabby to ballet and I got the time wrong. And old Nancy would have been so hard on myself and probably even blamed it on Gabby. And instead, I looked at Gabby and I said, Mommy messed up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's okay, Mom. And we just hung out in the car until the right time, right? Like it was totally not a big deal. And God's grace and God's mercy did that. Like, he left enough room and enough margin in my soul to understand how to live here on earth, how to parent correctly, how to love correctly.
How to admit you're weak.
Yes.
Admit you're human. I think that one of the most powerful things about forgiving, being forgiven, forgiving yourself, and learning how to function in a culture of forgiveness is that I don't have to defend an image.
No.
I don't have to defend myself because I do mess up. I do have issues. I don't do it all the time. I felt like I spent a lot of my early years trying to be right. I wanted to be right.
Exactly.
And I'm going to defend that right because the underlying motivation was if I was right, I'd be safe. And that
in control,
which would be safe. So we're talking to secure. I want to be safe by being in control. To come to find out and usually it does happen. There's a crash.
Right.
Your relationship starts to unravel. You start to unravel, and to go, what am I holding on to? I'm not in control.
No.
And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to say I totally messed up. I'm sorry. It takes the pressure off, and I love that God, it is that receiving as that love, receiving of his grace and mercy. And then it's like it not just makes room in your soul, but it continues to clean out room in your soul.
Oh, it's beautiful.
So the more mercy and grace I receive from God, the more mercy and grace I'm able to give others. The more it's okay. We all mess up.
And it never stops. Like my kids are now in elementary school and I still work full time. I have this business and I'm still messing up.
Yeah.
But the difference between now and then is that I leave room for God.
Yeah.
And I leave room for him to show me that it's okay. Like you are going to be imperfect. And all I need you to do is to continue to try and to continue to show up. And that's really all your husband and your children need of you as well. And that's really all your clients and your coworkers and your sisters at church need of you, is just to show up. They're not expecting you to be perfect. And that was so freeing. It's just my new life verse is John 10:10. And in that verse, he talks about life abundant. And in our Western culture, we take this word abundant for granted because we think we're supposed to have the house and the job and the car and the kids and the dog and all of these things. And abundance means something more than that. But abundance now means that I can work with the Holy Spirit. I can work with God.
Yeah.
And he does multiply, whether it's your children or your finances or your energy level, giving him the room to do what he is good at, and that is multiplying us.
And giving him the little that you have. I think instead of feeling like you have to show up with everything and then give it to God and say, God, help me make this thing bigger, it's like the opposite, which is admitting that you don't have it, admitting that you're frustrated, owning and accepting that this is where I'm at, and then going, the little I have, God, I'm going to ask you to help. Yes. I'm going to ask you, forgive me for what I cannot do and help me do what I cannot do. That it isn't up to me to hold it together, because he's actually holding it together. It sounds like it's such a huge perspective shift.
Huge.
In your life. Did you have any bad mom friends that came along with you, or like did you have to get new friendships from that, or like how did that impact? Were you just like, thank God that's over and I can drop that culture?
Both. I mean, ask me later, because I think it's still happening.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is there were some friends right away that just you outgrow. Mm-hmm. And when you're enlightened and when your perspective shifts and when you're prioritizing God and you're treating your husband like a partner and you're treating your children like a gift instead of a burden, they can't relate to that. And so I'm not mad at them. It's just, I pray for them and I'm here when they're ready. But I am not going to continue to sit there and listen to you trash talk your husband and wish things were differently, or, treat your kids as if they're bothering you somehow. And so that was a healthy boundary that God empowered me to make. And so I did lose quite a few people because of that. And I'm still losing quite a few people because the closer I grow to God, the further away from the world you become. But then there were other people who said, I was feeling that too. Like, I want to come to coffee club, but I don't want to sit there and listen about how bad everybody's marriage is. Right.
Because it doesn't actually help.
No.
There's a void. It actually creates more of a void than it does encouragement.
You lose hope, right? There's it perpetuates hopelessness if you don't hear. And all it takes is one voice to break that cycle of hopelessness. For somebody to say, I can't wait to go on date night with my husband. Right? And then everybody looks at you like you're weird, but in the back of their mind,
who are you? Right, what kind of creature are you?
What is that? Why do you have time for that? But in the back of their mind, they're going, oh, so there is hope.
Yeah.
Oh, so it is possible. Mm-hmm. And I have new friends. So because of Bibles, Babes, and Business, because of the church, because of Christ-centered communities that I have found through listening to the Holy Spirit and making room for God, I'm learning and I'm growing, and I have mentors that continue to pour into me. And it's amazing because you constantly have to be pouring into and out of.
To be healthy.
Exactly. And so I don't want to shut all of the doors from the people that aren't in the exact same season that I am, because I hope that I can pour into them just the way other people are pouring into me.
And give them hope. And offering them hope. If you right now, if there's a woman that's listening who feels hopeless, or who feels like she is miserable because she just can't live up maybe not even her own, maybe it's her own expectations. Maybe it's the expectations that her family puts on her, or her church,
Culture.
or her culture, whatever those expectations. She feels like she is just carrying 100 pounds every single day. What would you say to her of guilt, 100 pounds of guilt?
Let it go. Take Elsa's words and let it go.
Let it go. It's such a good thing.
And I say let it go because I go back to John 10:10. You were made to have an abundant life, not any old life, not a life that you have to survive, not a life of drudgery, not a life of discontentment and expectations from the world. You were made to live in joy and abundance, and it is available to you
through Jesus. So
through Jesus.
John 10:10 is the thief came to kill, steal, and destroy, but I have come that you might have life and have it in abundance.
Right.
And this promise of life that Jesus gives to everyone begins with forgiveness. It begins with identity. It begins with that whatever you're carrying right now on your shoulders, he says, if you could hand that to me, I can you're not made to carry the guilt and the shame and the pressure, expectations, and continually. I hate failing,
right?
And I've for some reason thought that I don't know if anybody really likes failing, but
I don't think so.
But I know that when I failed, it was you have to do better. You have to figure this out. Like not failing would essentially get me to that place where I would feel
arrived.
And instead it's the opposite.
Right.
It's a great heaviness and hopelessness because we are human.
Yeah.
We're broken. I've got issues upon issues upon issues that I have to work out. And here Jesus says, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy your life, and he'll do it any way he can. However, I've come that you can have life and life abundantly.
Hallelujah.
He comes and he says, like you said, I forgive you for not being perfect. You don't have to earn my love. I give it right now. You can receive that and be free to, let's talk about who I created you to be as my daughter, as the daughter of God, as a wife who there is hope for marriage. There is hope in motherhood. You can have a community of people that can help you grow. You're definitely not in it alone.
No.
We're not supposed to do it on alone.
No.
I think that's why women seek community, because we need it.
Yes.
It's really, really important. But God has, and he's created us for that, all the more if we can be a voice of hope for women who are feeling like they want that moment where they can let it go.
Let it go.
Lay it down. You don't have to carry that. You've got a Savior who can take it from you, and his arms are open, and he says, if you'll give it to me, I bore it on the cross already.
Right.
I died, and I took all of that on myself, and then I left it in the grave. I'd love to walk with you in a new life. There's hope, and there is a journey of, I think what I love about that verse is that he walks with us. It's a journey. It's not a one-time thing.
No.
I'm going to help you every day discover what this life that I've created you to live in. And it's not to have a poverty of emotions. It's not to live in fear and disappointment,
right,
and resentment and
bitterness, all
and
of it.
bitterness. And the hardest thing is women are we're hard on ourselves.
We are. But the beginning of that verse is just as important too, because if you're hearing anything besides that, that isn't true. That is the devil. So if you feel like you have to be perfect, if you feel like you have to do all of these different responsibilities in order to feel truly loved and unlonely and hopeful and joyful and content, call it what it is. The devil.
Yeah.
And Jesus has already defeated you.
He says he's the thief.
Exactly.
He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But Jesus comes to give life. He comes to give you everything that he has, and in abundance. So it's not a scarcity mindset. It is an abundant mindset.
Love that. Yes. And thank the Lord for that. He will be with you, like you said, every step of the way.
Up and down. And it's not about being happy all the time either.
No.
It's not like you don't have hard days or that you don't get mad at your husband,
Right.
I'm assuming.
No, definitely. It still happens. And there's peace in contentment, and there's peace in grace and mercy, and knowing that you're going to mess up, and knowing that you're going to fight, and knowing that you're going to disappoint your children.
And you're going to be forgiven. You just have to ask. You just have to receive.
Yeah.
Receiving is hard.
It is hard.
And for some people it can feel very unsafe. The safest, and sometimes that's why it's so powerful and freeing, is that you can receive from God. You can't trust anybody. You can trust God.
Right.
He's not going to hurt you. You can receive and be free of self-hatred, of perfectionism,
Right.
of all the things that you're trying to hold on to that are actually making you miserable. You can be free of those. You can let go.
And that's our free will.
It
that
is.
we can
get to choose. We do. We
to
get to
receive
choose.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nancy, thank you for joining me for today's podcast and sharing your powerful forgiveness stories. Where can people, if they want to get connected with you, if they are struggling with postpartum and they want some support, where can they find you?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. And you can find me at biblesbabiesandbusiness.com, or you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Dado Ellis B times 3.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you are here and you are struggling with self-forgiveness, or if something that you are on your own journey of forgiveness, we are doing a Bible study at Beloved called Portraits of Forgiveness, and you can find that at thebelovedmovement.com. I want to challenge you and encourage you to start the Bible study. God will meet you where you are and help you go to where you need to be. And we will see you next time on Beloved Conversations.